All right. Hey, who owns a picture-taking device? Be that a phone, a camera. Okay. Oh, guys, that's most of you. So you guys are professional photographers, videographers. And here's the deal: the reason that we take photos, videos, is because we want to freeze a moment. We want to capture something. Either it's really cool, it's really awesome, it's so funny, like soda's coming out of your nose. For whatever reason, you want to freeze this moment and capture it. And yet, there's a problem that happens sometimes. So over Christmas break, I was spending a lot of time with my family. We were having a great time. And one of my sons was like, "Hey, Dad, can I borrow your phone? I want to take pictures of this." And I was like, "Sure." And so this is the first picture that we have. This was the first moment. Somebody tell me what's wrong with this. It's blurry. It's blurry, right? You also, there's not really like a thing, that a subject that we're focused on. It's just crazy. But these were all like, hey, can we grab the door real quick? These were like there was like 10 of these pictures on my phone. They all looked like this. They were all blurry. Sometimes that happens. And what's happening when it's blurry? Well, the focus is off. It's not focused on what you need it to be focused on. But it doesn't just happen to my kids, it happens to me too. My daughter was in this tent. I had built like a fort for my kids on a Saturday. We were playing, and my daughter was being really cute, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to take a picture of this." But this is what happened. This is, I took a picture of a monster. And so, right, like when the focus is blurred, when your focus is off, it messes everything up. And so I want to talk to us about focus. We're in a series called Feature Length Film. And in movies, focus is really, really important. In fact, you would not watch a movie if the whole movie was out of focus. If the whole movie was blurry, you would give up immediately. You'd be like, "Oh, this is stupid. I'm not going to watch this." In fact, when your friends try to show you a really blurry video, you're like, "Nope, this isn't good. This isn't good." And so, in a movie, focus really, really matters. But some movies are hard to focus on. And I told you this last week, I really, really love movies, and I love long movies. In fact, one of my favorite movies of all time is 4 hours long. 4 hours, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, but not the regular version, the extended edition, which means that it had cut scenes, it has extra footage. It is 4 hours long. Now, how many of you think that you could watch 4 hours of movie? 4 hours, you could do it. You could do it. Okay, now here's the deal. I thought it'd be interesting to look at what are some of the longest movies ever made. And the one of the next ones surprises me because it's actually 2 movies, but because it's a part 1 and part 2, I guess it counts. So how many of you have seen Avengers Infinity Wars and Avengers Endgame? So if you put those 2 together as one movie, that's 5.5 hours of movie. How many of you have watched those back to back? Some of you have. I'm mind blown. That's crazy. But that is far from the longest movie ever. The longest movie ever released in a theater. So this was in a theater, was a movie called Rasan. It's a Swedish movie made in the 1980s about nuclear war. And I know all of you cannot wait to go to Blockbuster and pick that up right now. But here's the deal. Blockbuster was a thing. Never mind. Okay, so Rasan, one movie released in theaters, was 14 hours, 33 minutes long. How many of you feel like you would have to take 20 bathroom breaks in order to finish that? That's a long movie. That's not the longest. So in the 1920s, 1928, the burning of the Red Lotus Temple was a movie released in China. Now, this movie, you got to remember, it was on film, and so they couldn't put all of it on film at the same time. So it's not the longest film shown at once. It was shown in 16 parts. So the 16 parts of the movie together are 27 hours long. 27 hours long movie. How many of you know absolutely that you would fall asleep during that movie? Okay. Now, that's not the longest movie ever. So the longest movie ever is a movie called Logistics. Logistics is a movie that decided to follow the journey of the pedometer. Now, none of you know what a pedometer is because a pedometer is now built into your smartphone and built into your watch. But a pedometer tracks your walking and your steps. So what they did was they said, hey, what if we turn a camera on and we follow the making of a pedometer from the moment that the first materials are collected to the moment it makes it onto a shelf. And so they turned the camera on and followed the making of the pedometer from Thailand to China to Sweden to, and they left the camera on during the plane, on the boat, on the truck. And this movie, which was shown in a library from January to February, was 35 days and 17 hours long. That is the longest movie ever. In case you were wondering, it's 857 hours long. Okay, now, what I think is immediately clear is that none of us would be able to focus on that. But what's crazy is we do actually have a hard time focusing on things we should be focusing on. You know, it's interesting, since the year 2000, which I know none of you were alive yet, but since the year 2000, the average focus time has dropped 66%. So the amount of time that people, all people, like your grandparents, your parents, your sibling that tells you that they're so much smarter than you, they're not. Their focus has dropped 66% in 20 years. And so we're having a hard time focusing, but we can all agree focus really matters. And when it comes to your spiritual life, what you focus on is absolutely of the utmost importance. It is essential. What we focus on is the essential, most important thing. And so, if you have a Bible, go with me to Hebrews chapter 12. And it's going to tell us something that we need to focus on. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. I'm going to keep reading. It says, we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. What does it say? What does it say that we focus on? It says we focus on Jesus, the champion. So before we go any further into this message, we're going to stop right here. We're going to throw up some questions, and I want you to talk in your tag groups, and then we'll be back. So if you were to, actually, let's just do it for fun. Close your eyes real quick. And here is what is being described. It says we are surrounded by witnesses, or basically we're surrounded by an audience. Okay, so if you're surrounded by an audience, where does that place you? That places you in the middle of an arena, right? You're in the middle. There's a big audience all the way around you. And then it says, we're about to run a race. So wait. So open your eyes. This is the scene. This is describing you are in an arena. There's an audience around, and they're about to watch you run a race. Now, how many of you would be intimidated if there was people trying to watch you run? I don't want people to watch me run. I'm not a good runner. I'm not a fast runner. In fact, do you know what's really embarrassing? Over Christmas break, me and my cousin were talking. He is a sophomore in high school, which means I am significantly older than him. I am twice his age, literally twice his age. I am at the peak of my life. He is not at the peak of his life yet. He runs literally twice as fast as me. Literally, his running time is 2 times. He runs 2 miles in the time it takes me to run 1 mile. I don't want people to watch me run. But here's the deal. We are in an arena, and the people watching us aren't just random strangers. It's people who have lived a life after Jesus, and now they're cheering you on doing the same thing. So we are being watched right now. It says there's a cloud of witnesses, and they're watching you about to run the race. And it says you are in your like pre-race warm-up. Have you ever seen like at the Olympics when they're getting ready to run, and they come out in like the full suit, but as they start to warm up and they're doing their stretches, they're getting ready, they start to take off the outer layers because they're like, hey, I got to run faster. So they take off the jacket and they take off the long pants, and they're stretching and they're checking their shoes and they're getting ready because they're ready to run the race, and they want to run it really well. Nobody shows up to the race wanting to run it terribly, right? No, they want to win. They're looking at the goal. And just like you and I, they're trying to reach the end of the goal. But what's our end? Our end is living this life the way that God created you to live it. Now, here's what's really beautiful. We're in this race. Everybody's watching. You and I are about to run. We've taken off the jacket. We're ready. We're stretched. We're going to run this race. But what are we running towards? And that's where it says, look at Jesus. Verse 2, throw that up. Verse 2, it says, we run this race really well by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion. The champion? Yeah. See, here's what's interesting about this race is that Jesus is already at the end waiting for you. And it's not that he's at the end because he cheated and somebody drove him in a golf cart to the end and he's like, hey, you're going to run. That's going to stink, right? No. That's not what Jesus is doing. Jesus is the champion who initiates. Do you know what that means? Jesus is the one who created your race. He's the one who created your run. He's the one who created your life. And he has a plan for your life. He has a purpose for your life. And he's marked out the track so that you know where you have to run. And it says he's the perfecter of our run. What does that mean? It means that he's already done it so that when you get to a point in your life where you're like, man, this race is really hard. This running is tough. You can remember, but wait, Jesus already did this. I'm not the first one to do this. This isn't an impossible race. This is a race that's already been won. Jesus has already done it. This is a race that's doable. And how do I get to the end? By focusing on Jesus. If I keep my eyes during my entire race, or in other words, if I spend my whole life looking at Jesus, I will make it to the goal. Not only will I make it to the goal, but I'll win. And so I want to focus on Jesus and make it to the end. But if I'm honest, I think that might sound a little confusing. And I don't want you to go out from here going, okay, I have to focus on Jesus. How do I focus on Jesus? Jesus, where are you at? Like, Jesus, I got to focus on Jesus. Where is he? Shut up, little brother. I can't. I'm trying to focus on Jesus right now. That's not what we're going to do. I want to show you a verse that I think will really help us. Deuteronomy chapter 6. And you might recognize it because Jesus actually quotes it in the Gospels. But Deuteronomy 6, verse 5 says this: you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength. So if you want to focus on Jesus, the best way to do that is to love him with everything. What is your heart, your soul, and your strength? That's all of you. You don't have anything left, right? You can't be like, I'll give you all of my heart, my soul, and my strength, but I keep my shoes for Satan. No, everything is for God, right? If you love him with your heart, your soul, and your strength. So we focus on Jesus by loving him with our heart, our soul, our strength, and commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. The next verse. This is really good. This is really helpful. Let's look at that next verse. It says, repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you are on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands. Wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And you're probably going, wait, what? But here's what it's saying. If you want to focus on Jesus and you want to love him with everything that you have, put him everywhere. Make him obvious. Because what does it say? It says, if you want to love him with all you have, talk about him. Talk about him with your family. Talk about him when you're on the road, like so in the car, talk about him. When you're with friends, talk about him. It says put him on your wrist. Like, what if you wore clothes that reminded you of Jesus? He said put him on your doorpost. What if the things in your room reminded you of Jesus? What if you surrounded your life with reminders of Jesus so that every day it was actually easy to focus on Jesus? Because I think for some of us, you would say, man, it's really hard for me to focus on Jesus. I leave JVOX and nothing reminds me of Jesus. And I would say, you know what would simply help? Help you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Help you focus on Jesus, the champion and perfecter of our faith. Make him obvious. What if you put Bible verses in your room? What if you listened to music that talked about God every day? What if some of the books that you read reminded you of Jesus? What if some of the conversations that you had was about God? What if you make him an obvious part of every day? Do you know what I love? If you were to do that, it's actually scientifically proven that will help you focus. Can I give you a couple weird examples? I'm going to start with this one about hotels. So there was a hotel chain that had these, let's go to that next picture, that had these, they would have a buffet, right, where you could eat, you would get all you can eat. And so what was happening was people would go in and they would fill their plate, and then like all of us, they would eat some, and then they would go, oh my gosh, I'm too full, I can't finish this. And they would throw the food away, right? How many of you have ever done that? How many of you did that last night at dinner? Okay. So anyway, we do it. We fill our plate, and then we're like, oh, I can't eat it. And they were throwing away so much food that they said, hey, what if we narrowed people's focus? What if we made them focus with a smaller plate? And so instead of 11-inch plates, they gave everybody 9-inch plates. Now that's really silly, right? They didn't say, hey, please stop throwing away food. They didn't say, hey, make sure you focus on how much food you're picking up at the buffet every day. All they did was made you focus with a smaller plate. And do you know what's crazy? Is every single week they threw away 22% less food. Now that's wild, right? Nobody had to say anything. It just happened because they changed the focus and it was obvious. What happens if you were to make Jesus obvious like that in your life? Let me give you another example. In Sweden, they had this road that everybody would speed on. Everybody would go flying past it, and what they tried to do was put a camera there, and if you went past it going too fast, they would mail you a ticket, and you would have to pay money. But somebody said, what if we helped people focus on doing something good instead of ignore doing something bad? And so what they did was they said, hey, how about if anybody goes past this under the speed limit, we take a picture of their license plate and they're entered into a drawing. And at the end of the month, if their name is pulled out of the drawing, we'll give them the money from everyone who got a traffic ticket. Now, how many of you know that if you could get thousands of dollars for driving under the speed limit, you would? None of you drive, but I think you would be like, $1,000? Yes! Now, here's what's crazy. In one week, 13,000 drivers who normally sped dropped below the speed limit. Now, they didn't say anything except focus on doing the right thing. Do you know how crazy it would be if in this life we try to focus on Jesus, run after him with all we have, and we start to help ourselves love the Lord by making him obvious? Deuteronomy 6 says, talk about him as you go. Wear him on your wrists and on your forehead. And I know that one sounds weird, but you could wear a hat. They used to have these little boxes that they would wear with, literally, they would put Bible verses inside the boxes. That's kind of weird, right? But that's what they would do. They would write it on the doorpost. So as they were leaving their house, there was like always a reminder. What if on your bathroom mirror you had a reminder every day, oh, I'm going to be strong and courageous. I am a child of God. I am loved by my Father. Right? Like, what if you made Jesus obvious in your world every day?